Okay, welcome back to part two of our How to Make Everything You Say Hypnotic and how to take your hypnotic skills with you everywhere you go, whether it's social, whether it's more formal, whether it's at a dinner party, it's at a social gathering, a pub, a club, wherever you find yourself, where a conversation is where you are in the relevance of the places that you're visiting. How can you make those conversations hypnotic? How can you possibly have a conversation with someone and change their mind and teach them something about hypnosis, or the end result, get a paying client from the way you interact with people? So we're lucky enough to have Rebecca back online. Welcome, Rebecca. Glad to see you again.
Hi, thank you.
So before we get into it, Rebecca, we just want to cover the last part of this, which I think is the most important part. We have essentially covered the what to do. Okay. We looked at how can we change our conversation to be more hypnotic? How can we grab the unconscious attention of everyone we speak to? How can we make people hang off every word we say, essentially? And how can we start to direct that towards maybe teaching them something about hypnosis through metaphors? Or how can we possibly get a paid client from every interaction we have? So we went through a lot of content last time, and I know you've told me you've listened to it multiple times. Do you have any questions from the content we went through before we get into part two of this training?
No, not at all.
Excellent. So we know the what. We know what to do. We have the instructions. We have a guideline of what to follow. But the question that stuck in my mind when I was first learning how to do this, and I'm sure it was for you, and you told me something about this similar just last week, was how am I going to do this spontaneously? How can I be more creative when I'm talking to people? How can I come up with these spontaneous hypnotic metaphors? How do I do this so seamless that my normal everyday interactions are always hypnotic? I don't have to switch between the two. So we don't have to go into a situation being normal Rebecca and then switching to hypnotic Rebecca. What we want to do is how do we make everything you say or every way you interact so hypnotic and so unconscious attention gathering that people do hang off every word you say. Okay, so we want to spend the next part of this session figuring out how to do this. And essentially, if we break every technique down that we've discussed last time, whether it be the metaphors or the actual process itself, there's one thing that if you nail, the process becomes simple. If you get so good at this one thing, you never have to try and be hypnotic or never have to try and hypnotize someone again. And that is your creativity. Now, do you think yourself as a creative person?
Somewhat.
Somewhat. And you like the majority. People will say,
Yeah.
I'm creative in this part of my life, but I'm not very creative here.
Yeah.
I'm creative when I play with my children. I can follow along or create new games with them, but I'm not creative when it comes to sorting out my own problems. Or maybe I'm creative because I love drawing, but I'm not creative at figuring a new way to save my relationships. Okay. So when it comes to hypnosis, hypnosis is all about creativity. Doesn't matter what school of hypnosis you come from, what style you've adopted, what style you've mastered. If your creativity is not there, your hypnosis is going to come across very mechanical, very obvious, and have little to no impact. And this comes back from something we've said over the many years of training students, which is the words mean nothing. The language patterns mean nothing. The techniques mean nothing. Those things only work because of the creativity you put into them. It's the spontaneous creativity that you can put inside every language pattern or every word that you say that has the impact, not the words themselves. And you as a full-time hypnotherapist have probably had this. You can say one language pattern or use one technique on one client, works really well. Then you just take that same technique or that same language pattern to the next client and it has no effect. Have you had something like that before?
Yes.
We all have. And if you haven't seen enough clients, you best prepare yourself for it because it will happen. So there's one way and one simple strategy we can put into place that will take some homework on your behalf, but also for the people listening at home, that will instantly boost your creativity and have you thinking, and this is the key here, have you thinking like a hypnotist or a conversational hypnotist in the way that we do things, not just either a script reader or a technique lover of hypnosis. Okay, so let's go through what I call the creativity game. And essentially this, we want to start to develop the way you utilize that more creative part of your mind, which is more the unconscious mind, rather than trying to go through this logically. So trying to go through this logically will be everything we talked about last time. You'll go into an interaction, you'll say, well, Scott said I had to create eye contact. Okay, yep, I've got eye contact. Tick that off the box. Scott said I had to ask open-ended questions. Okay, great, I've done that. Tick it off the box.
Yep.
Now, this will have no impact for your client. But if you go into this interaction with your creativity switched on full, everything you say, regardless of the strategies we gave you last time, will have the impact of the best techniques out there. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay. So the best way to play with this is through the metaphors we talked about last time. So we looked at metaphors just as a shortened story. It's a nice way to wrap up a story, or it's a nice thinking game to give to your client when we're saying, you know, if we're looking at universal metaphors, to go through an interaction about what hypnosis is, what we can teach them about it, how they could use hypnosis, the way that we think about it, how they could book us in for a hypnosis session, and we can wrap that up with a universal metaphor like we looked at last time, you know, life's like a box of chocolates, or the grass is always greener on the other side. Using those simple universal metaphors, we can start to be more creative to make the metaphor as a whole have more impact. So how do we do this? The best way to do this is to start off very monotonous and to start off with the most boring thing we can talk about and make it have an impact. Okay, so what do I mean by this? We're going to start to look at something called a learning strategy. And this is the essence of a metaphor. Metaphor is given so the unconscious can learn from it, produce some spontaneous reaction to it, and give the conscious mind the learning strategy from it. Okay, that's the back end of the metaphor. So if you're not creative enough to think of things that would wow people, like environments or talking about certain subjects you're passionate about that would really wow people, and this is what Erickson was famous for. Erickson was known to talk about very mundane and little things in life, very boring everyday objects, and make them seem so impactful that their clients would never look at that object or that thing or that scenario the same again. Okay. So if I was going to ask you to create a learning strategy, the learning strategy would need to sound like this. I'm going to give you a random object, and you're going to tell me what I can learn from that object. Okay, it'll seem very broad and weird and stupid at the start, but this is the starting of a learning strategy. Let me give you an example to start off. Let's say an everyday object was a car. Okay, so let's say through your interactions, you're talking to this person and you find out they like cars. So the spontaneous metaphor or the learning strategy you're going to provide to this client at any point in the interaction, this is just an addition to becoming creative. You might say something like, well, let me ask you this. What could a person of any age, stature, race, creed, whatever it is, learn from a car that would help them in their life? What could you come up with?
Okay.
It's difficult, right? It's weird.
Yeah. Now I'm like, really, I'm probably thinking too hard.
Exactly. That's where it comes in. That's the logical mind thinking too hard. That's where the creativity stops. Do you see how easily that can happen?
Yeah,
okay.
Definitely.
So if you're going to be more creative, we might look at a car and say, well, you know, someone can learn from a car because just like a person, a car needs fuel. Otherwise, it can't run consistently. So let's say I'm working with a weight loss client. What have I just told this weight loss client indirectly?
What you eat is important.
What you eat is important. Do you see how simple that could be?
Yeah, definitely.
Now, if my client comes in and I know they like cars, or they're wearing a t-shirt that is not uncommon with a car on it, wouldn't you think that's the type of metaphor I'm going to try to explain my advice through?
Yeah.
And I might say something like, well, you know what happens if we don't look after our car? It breaks down. Doesn't the body break down if we don't feed it correctly?
Yes.
Now, when the car breaks down, we take it to a mechanic, don't we? So just like we take a car to a mechanic, the last place you'd want to find yourself is at the mechanics for the body. Isn't that a doctor? You can see how this interrelates with the message I'm giving them. Now, while they're thinking, well, he's talking about a car, he's talking about maybe the mechanics of the car, how a car runs, the fuel it needs, the color it has, the way the motor works,
Mhm.
I'm indirectly telling them about them. That if they
Yeah.
don't look after their body, it'll break down and they'll have to go see a doctor
Mhm.
to see how
Mhm.
that could work.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
let's have another go at this. I'll throw the first one over to you. What if I needed you to tell me a learning strategy about a table? What could
Okay.
someone learn? Yeah, just give me one little strategy or one little thing anyone could learn from what a table does so well that someone could take into their life.
The table. Okay. Um. Well, a table provides stability.
Excellent. Pause right
Um.
there.
Yep.
We have our first learning strategy, don't we?
Mhm.
What if a client's coming in who dislikes their family, has a problem with everyone in their family?
Mhm.
And you might say, well, isn't a family just like a table? Because that table provides stability when you need to rest something on it.
Mhm.
See how that could work.
Mhm.
So a table does provide stability. What else does a table do that we could extract and put into a real life situation?
Um. Well, going with the family metaphor, I suppose you could say that the table has 4 legs or however
Excellent.
many legs, and they're all even, so they're all um, taking an even load, I suppose.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Each table leg has a certain specific goal in being the table,
Mhm.
has a certain place that it needs to be and do, just like a family does.
Mhm.
Okay, the majority of the families that we know anyway.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, what else does a table do?
Um, a table. I don't know why this is so hard.
It is very hard because what's happening is I'm asking you to think about a logical object that your associations are only aware of a table being a table.
Yeah.
You've got your laptop and maybe your microphone or your hands on a table right now or a desk. That's
Mhm.
all you know it as. But
Mhm.
now what we want to include is if a client has one of these things in their life, which they will,
Mhm.
what they've learned from a table and all the things that table can do or that desk can do that they take for granted,
Yeah.
the unconscious mind can start to reflect that back on them and becomes a therapeutic outcome. That's why it gets a little bit difficult. And like I said, this would be something that you take home. For people listening at home as well, there's something you continue. And I went through this as well. I ummed and ahed myself all the way through this until I was picking out random objects like a table, a pen, a wallet, a pair of glasses, a TV, a couch, a rug, a ceiling fan, a car, a tree.
Mhm.
And now you can start to learn and create metaphors from them that can be included inside the way you speak to people.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what else could a table do?
Well, the table that I'm sitting at right now actually has a drawer inside of it.
Excellent.
So it is very useful for holding things that I need, keeping them hidden away from perhaps the children, and I am able to get them out and utilize them when I need them the most, just like the unconscious mind, I suppose.
Perfect. That's
Yeah.
exactly where I was hoping you would steer that.
Oh.
Can you hear how you've just explained the very function of the unconscious mind from a drawer? Because isn't the
Yeah.
unconscious mind like having a drawer you keep all your most valuable stuff in? And you keep it hidden, sometimes even from yourself, and you forget all the wonderful things that are in there. But some point you need something drastically, and you know exactly where you go. It's inside that drawer. But like the majority of us, we've locked that drawer. So I guess our quest together, you being my client, is to find the key, unlock the drawer, take out what you need, and keep the key on you at all times. Do you see that metaphor playing out?
That's a really great metaphor, yeah.
I'm talking about a drawer. But it's no longer talking about hypnosis like, well, hypnosis is about using your unconscious mind. It's about developing a relationship to your undivided power that everyone has inside of us. We've all heard this before. It's the same story being repeated over and over and over again. If we were to put all the therapists, all the clients, all the NLPers, everyone in the same room, wouldn't they all tell the same story?
Mm-hmm.
Except for us, because now we're telling the same story, but it sounds different. And
Yes.
people are now thinking, well, I asked Rebecca what hypnosis was, and now she's talking about a freaking drawer. What the hell is she on? And it's that dialogue inside that gets them thinking.
Yeah.
It's not, oh, I've heard all this before.
Mm-hmm.
Or, no, that's not hypnosis. How can someone argue with about hypnosis, your version of hypnosis, if you're not even talking about it? You're talking about a drawer.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? They can't.
Pretty hard argument to make.
Yeah, if they're going, well, hypnosis is not like a drawer. Well, it might be like a cabinet.
Mm-hmm.
It could be like that rug that we roll up and only take out for special occasions. And we have to dust it off and clean it. But we know that rug does something important. It makes things come alive. We can play with that even.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Do you hear the indirectness of that?
Yes.
Okay. And that little summary you gave before of, and that's what the unconscious mind is. Can you hear that whole process being played out? That's exactly what we talked about last time.
Yeah.
Okay. So let me give you another one. What about a pair of shoes?
Yeah.
What's one learning strategy from a pair of shoes? What's something a pair of shoes does so well?
Pair of shoes does so well. Well, the purpose of your shoes is to protect your feet, and to carry you through life, to the places that you need to go or would like to go. Mm-hmm. And if you take good care of your shoes, you buy new shoes and they're in good condition, you can get quite a lot of use out of them. Mm-hmm. And when they start to, I suppose, go in a bit of disrepair, you don't just keep using the same shoes when they've got a hole in it. Mm-hmm. You go and you get some new shoes. You want to protect your feet. You want to protect your socks. You don't want to walk around with wet feet or anything like that.
Excellent.
So yeah.
Excellent. Yeah. So what have you just explained to me? What could we take out of that would represent something therapeutic? Now, we talked about shoes protecting. Mm-hmm. When you have a pair of shoes with a hole in it, you need to find another pair. They're there to take you through life. Mm-hmm. What could that be summed up in someone's life? What is that like?
That would be like, I suppose, your unconscious mind again.
Yep. Perhaps? Unconscious mind again. Yep. Excellent. What else could it be like?
Your body.
Excellent. Your body. Now we're thinking. What else?
Yeah. What else?
If I gave you this, what if you had a quit smoking client? How could you pull out something therapeutic from that story about a pair of shoes that would suit a client trying to quit smoking?
I suppose you could say that you want to take good care of the shoes, like the body, mm-hmm. So that you can get the most out of life.
Excellent. Okay. Now, if someone's sitting there thinking, we're saying to them, you need to protect, the shoes to carry you through life and to protect your feet. You're now saying you need to have a body that can carry you through life and protect you from other things. Does that make sense?
Yes. Yep.
Okay. Now, this is important because if we just tell a client, smoking's bad for you, smoking lowers the amount of years you can live in life. Smoking causes lung cancer and other various horrible diseases. Smoking's bad for your teeth, your skin, basically every part of you. Mm-hmm. What are the chances that they already know this?
Probably really high.
Really high. And if all of this worked, if that theory of just telling someone or giving advice to somebody worked, why don't the cigarette packets work?
Yes.
Why don't the numerous adverts or the numerous conversations they've had with people that are closer to them than we are and love and care for them more than we do, why doesn't that impact them? Why? Because they've heard this all before. Mm-hmm. And as soon as they hear it, the conscious mind says, I've heard all this before. Yeah. But if you're sitting there talking about a pair of shoes, the unconscious mind or the conscious mind sits there confused and perplexed thinking, I'm in a smoking session, you're talking about a pair of shoes. I need to figure this out. And while it's trying to figure that out, whether it needs to protect the unconscious mind or negate the information or try and figure the steps out, the unconscious mind is getting the true metaphor behind it, and you get spontaneous change. Do you see how that works?
Yes.
Okay. Let me give you one more. I'm going to ask you this time. I'm going to give you the symptom, so like a client with weight loss issues or something like that, and then I'm going to give you the object. I would like you to give this client some advice using the very object. Okay. So the symptom I'm going to give you is a client who has stage fright, and the object is a pen. What could you teach this person about a pen that they could take from their life that they could overcome stage fright? Let's just see what you come up with.
Okay. Okay, so
take your time. It's not an easy exercise.
Yeah, I think it's a lot easier when you're in trance.
Yes.
Think of it logically. Okay, so like a pen, you oh gosh. Okay. Okay, so with a pen, the object, the pen, it is to write, is it not?
Mm-hmm.
Yep. So that's the purpose of the pen. The pen knows, what to do. It has no reason to be fearful of what it needs to do.
Mm-hmm.
It just does what it does.
Mm-hmm.
And you as the user of the pen, just have complete faith in the pen that it's going to do what it needs to do.
Excellent.
And where was I going with this? I don't know.
This is where it starts to get interesting.
So yeah, you have complete faith that that pen is going to write what you would like to write,
mm-hmm.
and the pen is going to do what you need it to do in your hands.
Mm-hmm.
So like you can have complete faith in that pen to do what it needs to do, I suppose you can think about that, and being on stage, you know that when you know what you're talking about, and you have all the information, then there's no need to be scared because you know that everything you need is inside of you.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Beautiful. Excellent. Take a bit of a break from
that. It took so long.
It does take long, but do you see how when you start, it starts to flow? Okay.
Yeah.
And this is not an instant process, and I really want to make this abundantly clear for people listening at home as well. This is not something that you can learn just from listening to this once.
Yeah.
It requires multiple listenings, trying, getting feedback and successes and failures to really nail this. Okay. So let's break down and I think it was a beautiful metaphor you gave us to talk about a pen in the way of therapy. Now, the best way to do this, if you're going to do this step by step, let's break this down now, because again, it's something you take home with you and you continue to practice if you do want to get good at this side of hypnosis, is to first look at what the pen does. Okay. The pen writes. Okay. We can also look at what does the pen write? What does it write? When have human beings in history needed a pen? Maybe they had a special note to give a loved one a quick I love you on a piece of paper. Maybe they needed to sign an important contract that would change their life. Maybe someone just needed a pen to write down an address to visit a family member they haven't seen in 10 or 15 years that they happen to bump into. Maybe they just needed a pen as a just in case. Now, if you think of everything a pen does and the way that you can control a pen to portray the very emotions you're feeling, it's that pen that you rely on so effectively. But I guess when it comes to jumping on stage and talking in front of people, you've forgotten that pen. What is the message that you wanted to give those people while standing on stage that pen would have written for you? So who knows if it's forgetting about the whole audience and just remembering what you wanted to write down. But maybe you need to look at the pen a little bit differently. Maybe instead of writing down your message, that pen is the very words that you speak. I mean, who's to say, or it might be silly of me to say, that just like someone writing down maybe their first story or first draft of something important, they get so lost in the image and the information they're portraying that they forget they're writing at all. I mean, you've seen people stand on stage who talk so fluently who never have to think.
Mm-hmm.
But who knows if they're similar? Do you see how that could come out?
That's such a perfect metaphor. That's amazing.
Okay.
Yeah.
And again, this takes time to learn how to do. But
Mm.
the easiest way to do this is when you're starting this is to just list the few things that a pen does or what a table does. So for example, we've all had a table in our life. And we all know most tables have 4 legs. And they're there to support things. We rest things on top. But they're also there as a great way to store things one on top of the other. Okay, I'm just letting them logically and consciously know what they know what a table does.
Yeah.
And then I'm going to start to expand that and say, while this table does this, what you're doing is very similar. So you need to be more like the table.
Mm-hmm.
Do you see how that comes out?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what I'd like you to do this time, we're going to do this again. You use the same pen. Okay, to actually change this up, just so I don't want your own associations kicking in. I'll give you another symptom. I'll give you another object. First thing is explain the object to me, 3, 4, 5 things this object maybe does. And then just see if your own associations kick in about how you can combine that together with some sort of therapeutic outcome. Okay. All right. So I'll give you the symptom. Let's use weight loss, a very common one. Yep. Weight loss, and the object you're going to use is actually harder to think of an object than it is the actual therapeutic outcome. Let's think of a book. Okay. Now let's take away from book. Book's probably very obvious. Let's think of a hat. This will be interesting. How can a hat teach someone about losing weight simply or easily, or having, unlimited energy to lose the weight in the first place?
Okay. So, we all have a hat. We've all worn hats before, and we've had many various hats for different occasions.
Mm-hmm.
We know that a hat is can be complementary to the things that we may be wearing. For us women, it's very important. We like to, it helps maybe accessorize an outfit that we, is the perfect complement to something that we're wearing.
Mm-hmm.
What else? Hats. Not only that, they are a source of protection from the harmful things around us, like the sun. You don't want to get burnt or get sun in your eyes, stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
What else? Hats.
Okay. Now start to turn that around to suit more of a therapeutic feel about why your client would be listening to a hat in the first place.
Okay. So I think, when you look at these hats that we use every single day, they actually have something that they can teach us. Let me think. How can I associate this? So just like your hat, being the perfect accessory to an outfit, feeling good about yourself, in what you're wearing, we can think about that hat and weight loss being the same. What was the other point I gave before?
It's all right. How is that going for you so far? How do you feel about going through this conversation?
Yeah, good. It's like I have moments where I'm pausing, but
yes.
It's like it feels like it's very long that I'm pausing, but then I'm getting things like slowly coming from my unconscious, like coming
Excellent.
forward. I'm waiting for those bits for me to join it together.
Yes. And
so
this
it's
is
quite
what's
an interesting process.
Yes. Yeah, and this is what's interesting. First, we're going to start doing this consciously, okay?
Yeah.
But as we go through this story, you've just got to stick at it for a couple of seconds or a couple of sentences, and then ideas will start coming to mind, and that's your unconscious mind expressing itself, okay?
Yeah.
And this is a difference between doing hypnosis consciously, which is reading a script, or pre-buying a metaphor, or trying to pre-plan it, which is impossible on all fronts, okay? Because you never know the conversation you're going to have. And you do this more stuff unconsciously, which becomes more spontaneous. So if we took what you were talking about and a hat being an accessory, something you repeated often, okay, maybe a client needs to look at their hat or the accessories of a hat, and having either hat being the accessory and adding things to the outfit that you have. Maybe that's the way they need to view their diet, as an accessory, but only an accessory. I mean, the hat isn't the whole outfit, is it?
No.
The hat is just an accessory, just like a specific diet is an accessory to your adventures into weight loss. I mean, what a hat does so well, if you match it correctly, you can hear the metaphor in that again, is it fits perfectly with numerous outfits. You have a hat for every occasion. But sometimes one hat is too much. Sometimes an outfit throws off a hat altogether. The point being is you really need to prepare the outfit properly, thoroughly, and really think about it before you step out into the big bad world and show everyone how good your hat is. Can you hear that? And we're basically saying that there's many diets.
Yeah.
A diet is just an accessory. What tends to happen with weight loss clients is that that's their sole focus. They think if only I have a diet, everything will be fixed.
Yeah. Yeah.
But what are they missing out on? The gym, cardio, maybe vitamins, water intake.
Yeah.
And they think, well, if I just do the diet, I don't have to do the other things. We know that's not the case.
Yeah.
So this is important if your client has told you, well, I'm doing a diet, but nothing seems to be working. It's a common symptom. So instead of saying, well, you going to the gym, you're drinking water, we're now saying that, especially if they're wearing a hat when they come in to see us, or the conversation comes up about hats, whatever the case may be, you can now let them know that the hat, like the diet, is just an accessory. And that they might need to rethink which hat they have at some days, because other days, no hat's needed at all. Sometimes it's quite possible you might need to wear two hats, although it looks a bit silly. At least you'll feel good about yourself and be protected. And you can start playing with that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Do you see that all coming together?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. So how does this all work with the process itself? Well, it's very simple. We looked at everything we talked about last time. We looked at adding the eye contact, opening up the conversation. If someone comes to us with a negative feeling about hypnosis and saying something like, well, I don't believe hypnosis is real, or can you teach me something about hypnosis? Instead of going through the normal routine of either arguing with someone about what hypnosis is, or giving them your version of hypnosis that basically hits their own thinking and their ability to have their own free will and free thinking in life, so the argument's going to continually go through, you can now explain things through these spontaneous metaphors. Okay. So let's say you're standing in a group of people and someone finds out you're a hypnotherapist or a hypnotist, whatever, and someone, you've got their attention of everything and you're teaching a whole bunch of people. Okay. Talking about a metaphor that's maybe in the room or the environment they're in, or how one thing could mean this thing. Can you see how that just invites, if you break it all down, that just invites a better, more interesting conversation?
Yes.
Telling people, I mean, how often, and you've seen this in the trainings yourself, and I'll point this out, this is a good example of this, we could be expressing a technique and saying, well, let's go through technique, let's go through steps 1, 2, 3, and 4, because we need the unconscious mind to do this, this, and this. And then someone pokes their hand up and says, is it the unconscious or the subconscious mind?
Yeah.
Okay. Or what if someone doesn't like the word trance? What if they don't know what trance means?
Yeah.
What that basically telling me is you haven't listened to anything I've said. You put all your attention on just asking that question, which means you've missed all the valuable content.
Yeah.
Do we not do this when we're arguing with people? Let's say you're having an argument and it's their time to argue against you, and they're going through every reason why they're pissed off or angry. And you hear one thing at the very start, and that's all you think about. And then you stop listening to the rest of it because you're waiting for your turn to back up.
Yes. Yeah.
We all do it. It's the same thing when it comes to this. When we're learning something or listening to something, we're very unfortunate that we start to listen to the one thing that only piques our attention and we forget the rest. Okay. So let's say in that group of people, we're talking to these people, we're talking about hypnosis and expressing the idea of what it's all about. And one person says, oh, I thought it was unconscious, not subconscious, or I thought the conscious mind did this, or this is my reasoning about hypnosis. Then you're having a group discussion, that's fine. But what I'm more interested in is how can you get everyone's attention by talking about the very floor they're standing on and how that is what hypnosis is all about.
Mm-hmm.
Could you imagine saying that as your opening line in a group of people, and someone says, "Oh, you're a hypnotist. What's it all about?" You say, "Well, it's funny you ask. Hypnosis is like the very floor you're standing on." And then you paused for a while. What do you think is going to go through everybody's mind at that point?
How?
Yes. Now I'm intrigued.
Yeah.
Or people are looking at you going, "What do you mean? What?
What are you talking about?
What are you talking about?" You haven't started with, well, the hypnosis is about utilizing your unconscious mind. They probably heard this before, or they start saying, and all it takes is for one person to interrupt your flow and say, "Well, I thought it was subconscious." And you can break that pattern. But by saying your opener, and this is the best way to open these things up, is to say, well, whatever you're needing to learn or whatever I'm about to tell you is like the very environment you're in. So if someone's sitting down, it's like the very couch you're sitting on. It's like the very t-shirt you're wearing. It's like the hat you're wearing. It's like that car that you drove yourself here with. And through conversation, you hear someone saying, "Well, I'm always fighting with my boyfriend. Do you have any advice for me?" Absolutely. Because arguing with a loved one is very much like those earrings you're wearing. And they're going, what earrings? Yeah. Yes, they do have earrings on. You want to get something that's inside their environment, something they can categorize and say yes to. And now you have their attention and they start listening because they want to know, you're telling me I could overcome this just like I'm wearing earrings. Wearing earrings was easy. Maybe this could be easy too. Do you hear how that could start a therapeutic change?
Yeah.
Okay. Any questions from that?
No, not at all.
So putting that all together, the best approach for this, and this was just the last part of the training, was just the creativity game. The best way to get creative, and this is a routine you can put into your maybe your current routine in learning hypnosis or NLP or life coaching, whatever, is to task yourself some part of the day and find an object in your house or your office or somewhere socially and think of, what could I learn from that? You know, I'm in my office right now, and in front of me I have a laptop, I have a microphone, I've got some bookshelves, okay, just to the right of me. So I might be sitting in my office today and go, wow, I wonder what I could learn from a bookshelf. Then I'm going to start to list things out. It's like doing a little therapy on yourself. Now, I'm not doing it to give myself a breakthrough, although it could happen, who knows, just by talking things out. But I'm learning, how do I think about things differently? And that's what hypnosis is, isn't it? You cannot do hypnosis without thinking differently. If you think about it like thoughts, we all have thoughts, right? We all have many different thoughts, okay? And this basically saying that the amount of thoughts we have could also lead into the many ways you learn hypnosis or understand the way hypnosis is. Can you see where we're going right now?
Yes.
Okay. So I'm going to find an object and start to think of, what is this object doing? What could it do? And how can I include that into something therapeutic from a client I might have in the near future? And the more you do this every day, it might take you a couple of minutes. I mean, it's not a long time to task yourself to do something that will help in the long run. It takes it a while to become spontaneous. Once the unconscious mind gets the pattern, it becomes very simple. That by the time you do this over the weeks and weeks and maybe months, by the time your client comes in, that might be the only way you ever do therapy again. Because the connections are so thick inside your mind because you've practiced it so much that the language patterns become irrelevant. The other techniques become irrelevant. They become an addition maybe. But the irrelevancy is basically saying this is how you make anything hypnotic. Inside us talking about the hat or the shoes, the metaphor we gave before, there was nothing as far as language patterns. But it got us thinking.
It did, yeah.
And that's what language patterns are supposed to do. They're supposed to quiet down the conscious mind and grab the attention of the unconscious mind and stimulate and start to interact with it. But where language patterns fall down is we get so tied into the one way, we get so tied into the language pattern being all the power, and we forget about how to add creativity to any language pattern or any language or any word we say, and that has the same result as the best language pattern at the right context or at the right time. Does that all make sense?
Yes.
Okay. So your goal is just to task yourself. Try this. Find an ordinary object. What is it doing at that moment? What does that object do? How could someone learn from it, or how could I learn from it? And how can I use that in a therapeutic context?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. So we've spent a fair bit of time on just this one subject. It does seem like a lot of content, but hopefully some principles are starting to be highlighted, which is basically your creativity is so important in hypnosis, regardless whether you're a clinical hypnotist or you call yourself a life coach or hypnotherapist or NLP. Your creativity is key to mastering some of the biggest things you can do in hypnosis, because without it, you become mechanical and you become stunted. What we hopefully have done with this training, and hopefully you've taken from this, is start to evolve the very practice of how we use hypnosis so it does become more spontaneous and suit more contexts. It's not just suited to our office anymore. And that was our main goal from the very start. How do we take hypnosis out of the office into the real world, where that's where you should be focusing your efforts on anyway, because that's where your clients are. That's where people are. They're not inside your office. They only come as a result of being outside.
Mm-hmm.
Any questions at all from the last couple of sessions that we've spent on this?
No questions.
So,
I look forward to practicing this
yes.
and utilizing.
Excellent. So the best place for you to go from here, again, is to familiarize yourself with the content, add it into the old content and also the way that your own professional skills that you have, and just come up with your own mixture. Come up with your own version. Okay, and this is what's important. So I do appreciate you being on the line for this training. We're going to catch up at a time very soon to continue on these trainings to start to highlight these little individual skills. Okay, that's what's important. We wanted to take an approach of how do we make individual skills as powerful as the biggest techniques, like your regressions or your past life therapy or your covert style or Ericksonian approach. They're all the big strategies. Yeah. What I wanted to do, and hopefully we've done this well with yourself, is to highlight the little things so the big things become even better. Mm-hmm. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Excellent. So I look forward to speaking to you next time. Love to hear your feedback. Spend a couple of days re-listening to this, see how you go. And again, thank you so much for joining us, Beck. I really do appreciate it.
Thank you.
You're very welcome. Bye for now.
Bye.